Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a really fascinating research paper from May 2026, and it tackles a frustration I know we've all experienced at some point. We're diving deep into a groundbreaking piece of research titled Macaron A2UI, a model for generative UI in personal agents. Honestly, if you've ever felt like typing about super long, complicated requests to your AI assistant is kind of like trying to paint a masterpiece through a keyhole, well, you're absolutely in the right place. This paper actually solves the limitations of AI text chats by introducing dynamically generated user interfaces. So, we're going to break down exactly how this technology works, how it was built, and why it is literally going to completely change the way we interact with our digital agents. So, I want you to think about this for a second. What happens when AI outgrows the chat box? Think about your typical interactions with personal agents right now. When you just want a quick fact, plain text is fantastic. But what happens when you're trying to, say, organize a multi-city trip, filter through dozens of product preferences, or coordinate a really complex schedule? Suddenly, plain text just doesn't cut it anymore. Typing out every single parameter becomes incredibly tedious, it's prone to errors, and frankly, it feels a bit archaic. So we're going to explore how we'll interact with personal agents when the conversation demands a lot more than just words. All right, section 1, the text-only chat bottleneck. Let's look at why static chat is rapidly becoming a major limitation for user-centric AI. Think about the court argument here. On one hand, you have static, plain text chat, which is incredibly rigid. If an AI needs to clarify your preferences for a complicated task, it basically has to spit out this massive wall of text asking you multiple questions, and then you have to type back an equally massive wall of text answering them. It's a huge bottleneck. But then, look at the alternative the researchers are proposing: generative UI. This is all about the dynamic synthesis of controls and options. Instead of relying purely on text, the AI generates a completely new interface layer in real time, right in the middle of your conversation. It constantly assesses the interaction context and synthesizes the exact buttons, sliders, or menus you need at that exact moment. It takes the friction entirely out of the process. Moving right along to Section 2, Introducing Generative UI Solutions. Let's look at the breakthrough proposed by Kong and their team of 10 co-authors to blast past this plain text barrier. Say hello to Macaron A2UI. This is the model the researchers developed, and it's specifically designed to dynamically synthesize the right UI state directly from whatever's happening in the conversation. And the cool thing is, it doesn't just abandon text completely. Instead, it moves beyond text-only interaction. The model generates natural language to talk with you, but right alongside that language, it generates lightweight, executable UI actions. It's essentially like having a conversational partner who can instantly draw a custom control panel on a whiteboard exactly when you need to make a complex choice, and then it immediately acts on the buttons you press. Section 3. Meet the Macaron A2UI model. Let's actually unpack what these executable UI actions look like for the user. So instead of forcing you to type out paragraphs of responses, the AI gives you clickable elements perfectly tailored for specific goals. The researchers highlight 4 main areas for this. First up, information collection. Imagine the AI instantly creating a custom fillable form for you, instead of asking 5 separate annoying questions. Next, preference refinement, giving you actual toggles or sliders to visually narrow down your choices. Then there's confirmation, presenting a beautifully generated summary card with a simple approve or edit button. And finally, multi-goal organization, where it creates interactive tabs or checklists when you are juggling several tasks at the exact same time. It's a real game changer, moving us from passive typing to interactive doing. Okay, Section 4, How the Models Were Trained. Let's look under the hood and see how they actually built Macaron A2E to understand human UI context. The team used a really specific 3-step training pipeline to seamlessly blend this UI generation with natural language. Step 1 involved building a massive generative UI corpus. They had to pull data from heterogeneous, basically highly varied dialogue sources, so the AI could learn from a huge variety of contexts. Step 2 is where they applied parameter-efficient LoRA-based supervised fine-tuning. Now, without getting bogged down in the deep math here, LoRA essentially allows researchers to train massive models incredibly efficiently by just focusing on a small subset of parameters. It's an amazing shortcut. And then finally, step 3, they executed reward-driven reinforcement learning. This is how the model learns what makes a good user interface. It literally gets rewarded during training for generating actions that genuinely help solve the user's problem. Now, what's truly mind-blowing here is the sheer scale of the models they trained. We're definitely not just talking about some tiny little proof of concept. The team scaled this methodology across models of dramatically different sizes. starting at a very robust 30 billion parameters, stepping all the way up to a massive 235 billion, and eventually topping out at a staggering 754 billion parameters. This proves for sure that their training pipeline is highly scalable and can be applied to those massive frontier-level AI systems, capable of really deep, nuanced reasoning. Section 5. Benchmark scores and impact. Let's see how Macaron A2 UI actually performed when they put it to the test. Whenever you introduce a totally new paradigm, like generative UI, you run into a pretty unique problem. How on earth do you measure it? The old tests for plain text AI just don't work anymore. So, to actually measure their success, the researchers had to invent a brand new benchmark from scratch called A2 UI Bench. This provided a standardized, highly controlled evaluation protocol specifically designed to test how well an agent can generate and use these new dynamic interfaces out in the real world. And the results were fantastic. The best Macaron A2I model hit a 75.6 overall score on this new A2I bench. To put that number into perspective, that score completely surpassed the strongest full-schema frontier baseline they tested it against. And honestly, here's the absolute most impressive part. Macaron A2I achieved this without even needing explicit schema hints. That means the model didn't need to be spoon-fed the underlying structural code of the UI. It was actually smart enough to organically infer and generate the correct UI state entirely from the natural flow of the conversation. You know, I absolutely love seeing this kind of thing in research papers. The team isn't keeping this breakthrough locked away. By releasing their trained models, the brand new A2I bench, and their entire evaluation protocol, they are essentially handing the keys right over to the open source community. They're actively sparking future innovations, ensuring that researchers and developers all over the world can build on this foundation to make our personal agents even more capable. So, we'll wrap up this explainer with a provocative question for you to ponder. How will dynamic generative UI change the way you interact with your personal AI agent? We've seen how Macaronic UI2 beautifully bridges the gap between static text and interactive doing. Imagine a future, and it's coming very soon, where your personal agent isn't just a chat box, but a dynamic canvas that builds custom, clickable interfaces for you right on the fly. Think about how much time that's going to save you. Think about how much more complex your requests will become when the friction of typing is completely gone. The era of the text-only bottleneck is closing, and the era of generative UI is really just beginning. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on how this incredible research evolves.